Welcome to How to Beat the Difference with your hosts, Johanna and Paul. A podcast for the career you want, or maybe just that push you need. If you want to know what your dream career looks like, join us to get inspiration from industry experts that will make that dream career a reality. Welcome to How to Be the Difference with your hosts, Johanna Molina and
Paul Linsky.
Hello, Paul. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Joanna. The sun is shining here. Although we were speaking just beforehand and we were talking about daylight savings and the clocks going forward and back. That doesn't happen to you in Colombia, does it?
It doesn't. We never ever change clocks, but we need to adjust with the rest of the world that does change. So you are now 5 hours ahead of me instead of 6, which is good. We can have more time of my time to have meetings.
Yeah, exactly. The problem I have with it is it's gonna get dark at 4 p.m. now for me in Ireland. So it's a little bit depressing, but I suppose like the flip side of that is the summer it can stay bright till like 11 p.m. I know this is like a boring subject, but it drives me slightly crazy, as you can imagine.
No, I can imagine. Yes, when I lived in the UK, and every time I visit, I love having sunshine until like 10 p.m. It's just nuts. I can't even really go around that. My body's like, I can't go to sleep when it's still daylight.
I know. And I know that happens. Sometimes you just have to, stay up all night, Joanna, and relive your youth and all that kind of great stuff. But come here, tell me real quick about our subject today. I'll tell you who we're speaking to, but talk me through it. How did it go?
So I know we mentioned we are in a series of edtech entrepreneurs and talks. But this time we have an entrepreneur actually that is very, very successful, although it's not necessarily in edtech. He's in fintech, and he's going to walk us through what fintech is and also what the relationship between fintech is with edtech.
Excellent. And as always, if you could please leave a rating, a review, whatever it may be, and wherever you get your podcast, that would help us out a lot. Now, we'll jump straight into it. And our guest today is Esteban Velasco. He is the CEO and co-founder of Sempli, a fintech company that offers working capital loans to small and medium enterprises in Colombia. He is also a partner from the venture capital fund Velum Ventures, which invests in seed startups in Colombia. With over 20 years experience in the world of finance, Esteban is well-versed in the topics of fintech, online lending, venture capital, investment, banking, technology, strategy, and finance. And you're very welcome along, Esteban. Whereabouts in the world are you currently?
Well, no, thank you very much, first of all, for the invitation. Actually, today I'm in Medellin, Colombia.
Brilliant. And that's a place very familiar to this podcast, but would you be able to talk us through your entire journey? So what is your background and how did you get to where you are today?
So, well, my background comes from a very entrepreneurial family. So perhaps that was part of what I do today. I had the opportunity to begin my career as an entrepreneur. So I went bankrupt perhaps in my first job experience by the age of 23. And then I decided to have a very reasonable career and in terms of corporate environment. So I moved to different telcos and I worked for another energy company. And then I decided to make an MBA. I actually lived in France for almost 1 year. And actually, I didn't tell you, but I studied business administration when I decided to make my undergraduate in Colombia too. And while I was doing my MBA, I took one subject about career management. And then one of the toughest questions that I had to ask in that subject was, where do you see in 5 years? I don't know why, but I then kept thinking about what I was doing for almost a month. And for some reason, I decided to work in venture capital because I actually had the opportunity to be an entrepreneur very early in my career, but also had the opportunity to work in finance for corporate institutions. So for some reason, so the next question that I had to answer was, what do you have to do to become a venture capital in 5 years from now? So the first answer was you have to work in investment banking. So that was the decision that I made at that time. So I came back to Colombia, worked for a very small investment banking firm dedicated to small businesses. And then working with that particular investment bank, I had the opportunity to create a VC fund, perhaps the first VC or venture capital that was in Colombia at that time. I'm talking about the year 2008. I actually began my career in the year 1999, so I'm kind of very old right now. But that time we were able to fundraise over $20 million. I had the opportunity also to work in different stages, from designing the fund, investing, or creating the screening and pipeline for the different startups that at the end we invested in. I had the opportunity to accompany those startups as board member, and also had the opportunity to exit or sell a couple of portfolio companies. But then I went back to the beginning of my career, where I felt that it was time to become an entrepreneur again. So I decided to create my own venture capital fund. It was very tough because I don't come from a very well or rich family. So because that's very important in the ecosystem or investment ecosystem, of course. But I went back to different investors or shareholders that I had the opportunity to meet throughout my career. I invited them to join the journey of investing in different startups. And I created a fund that is called Velum Ventures in Colombia. We only invested in Colombia for different digital startups, disruptive startups that are creating different businesses in Colombia, and some of them in Latin America. And it was very successful. I'm talking about 2014 to 2016 approximately. And then one thing happened. It was, we were not expecting this, but venture capital is not very well known in Colombia, or at least at that time. But we kept receiving a lot of small businesses that were needing different loans, regular loans, traditional loans, and they were not having a financial access from traditional banks. Our first reaction was to tell them, no, listen, venture capital is about investing, not lending. And then so in a couple of years, we had more than 300 small businesses that came to us. So we went back to our shareholders and investors and asked them, hey guys, what if we, instead of creating a second generation of funds, which is the regular path that a venture fund does, so instead of doing that, why don't we make a spin-off of the firm that we are having right now, and why don't we create a fintech dedicated to finance small businesses, so in a digital way, because that's the way we had been investing. All of it was about digital disruptive enterprises. So that we got the support from all our shareholders. That was very, very interesting thing to mention, and we're very happy because that was 4 years, almost 5 years ago, and we have been able to support over 2,000 small businesses in Colombia. We have lent over $55 million approximately, and we are in the process to create more disruptive products. Actually, we recently launched a credit card, the first fintech that has created a credit card dedicated to small businesses and startups in our country without using a traditional financial institution behind it. So, and in the coming weeks or months, we are going to be releasing new products, and we're very happy about it. So that's perhaps the summary of what I have done so far in terms of my career path. And I'm actually, I didn't mention, but I'm the founder and CEO of Sempli. I love to work with all the team that I have. I have a co-founder named Felipe, and well, that's what I have done so far.
Wow. So there is a lot of things that we would love to know from your introduction, from your career. I have witnessed, I think, probably your last 8 or 9 years in your career since Velum Ventures. Let's go back to a moment that you mentioned of bankruptcy. Very early in your career, you mentioned, I went bankrupt. What did that teach you? What did you learn from it? Tell us more about that experience.
Yes. So the first thing is that, I don't know, some of you guys, I don't know, but in the year 1999, so the internet was just exploding. I mean, it was a moment where that was the first internet crash that happened in the US. And of course, the US was actually the perhaps the only market that was very well developed in terms of the internet. So I decided, I actually had an internship in a local ISP internet service provider here in Colombia. Perhaps, Johanna, you had the opportunity to know it. It was Geonet, or no?
Yes.
You're much younger than myself anyway, but you were perhaps a kid when that happened. So I worked like my internship in Geonet. It was dedicated to as I mentioned, as an internet service provider. But then I in that 3 months, I had the opportunity to go to New York to fundraise over $5 million as a startup of that moment. And for some reason, I just had exit from the university as an undergraduate, and along with the CEO, we went to New York, and we got the fundraising done. So in a couple of months. So I was, wow, what happened here? So $5 million, and there's a project available to undertake here, and I think very irresponsibly, I made the decision to launch my own startup. I said, if I had the opportunity to fundraise over $5 million for other guys, why don't I do it for myself? And then on the internet side, so I created a company that perhaps very similar to what we see or we saw in terms of discounts as Groupon. But by that time, it was called Casa Descuentos, which is like discount hunting, something like that. But that time, internet was only for the very high for the rich people, actually. So mid-size or the base of the pyramid didn't have internet, but the rich people actually don't need a discount to go to have a dinner or to go to a restaurant or hotel or buy some clothing. So it was very rapid experience, but perhaps it took us a year. I fundraised over $400,000 of that moment, and being bankrupt, it was at that moment, I felt ashamed because I had invited several friends, my own family, and some people that I didn't know, but they were angel investors. I didn't know at that time. I didn't know the tag of angel investment, but anyway, they supported me. And in 1 year, so those $400,000 when we spent it very rapidly. I remember having a billboard on a very nice highway here in Medellin or spending a lot of money on servers. Now having an internet company today is very cheap compared to what I experienced at that time. But then perhaps one of the things that helped me overcome that shame or being ashamed was the fact that my father went bankrupt when I was perhaps 14 or 15 years old. And since I was 12 or 13 years old at home, I was involved in the business of my father, which was an advertising agency, a very small advertising agency. But a couple of clients didn't pay him, and he had to pay for the media. And he went bankrupt very rapidly. And after working for decades or 30 years in that industry, and I had the opportunity to see how he switched the bankruptcy to another consultancy firm. And at home, we didn't have like the same income that we had for 3 or 4 years. But that was okay. I mean, I kept saying to myself, so this is a time. And that's why I made the decision to have a more corporate experience. And perhaps I listened to other guys that helped me make that approach.
That's an excellent kind of story of resilience, you know, how to bounce back from something catastrophic that happens to yourself. But that's absolutely amazing. Something else you said there in your intro, which was really interesting, was that you were starting a credit card company or like a finance type company. Could you talk us through how you could do that? I mean, it's very big institutions within this. Is this a credit card that just works solely for your businesses, or how does that work?
Yeah, you have to bear in mind that in Colombia, for small businesses, credit card is not very well known. Normally, small businesses use their personal, or entrepreneurs, I would say. Entrepreneurs use their personal credit card rather than a credit card dedicated to the company. And just to mention, Colombia is a 50 million population country, and there are about 16 credit cards, and out of it, only 300,000 are dedicated to businesses. But then when you talk about businesses, normally those are the large, perhaps 80 or 90% of those 300,000 credit cards available are for mid-sized or large businesses, not dedicated to micro and small businesses. So we understood by doing loans, regular loans to our customer base, we kept receiving a lot of comments about, hey guys, why don't you offer me a credit card? Because I have my personal credit card for several purchasing issues, such as airplane tickets or restaurants or AWS or Amazon, I would say, or Google. It's very complex to manage my personal credit card along with the business. And at the end, so we understood that almost 80% of small businesses use their personal credit card to the business, to the business purchases. So we have in Sempli, at Sempli, we have a mindset about creating products that we listen from the market. And so we went back, created a first minimum product, a viable product. And then we talked to the guys from Visa. Visa is actually has created a fintech fast track for companies such as Sempli, and we worked along with different providers such as our processor, a local processor. And in Colombia, we understood, and we had a very legal consultancy about what we can do and what we cannot do. We can have a credit card, but we cannot have a debit card. We cannot offer deposit accounts, because otherwise we will need to be regulated by the financial regulator in Colombia. So that was it. So without a very complex study, so we just moved forward, and it took us about 10 months, and we are disrupting, and we are not scared about the traditional banks. And actually, I had the opportunity to read an analysis from a company similar to Sempli that is based out in Mexico. And actually, we have more clients after 3 months than what they do and Mexico is 3x or 3 times the Colombian market. So that gives us confidence that we are doing a very good job in our market.
And you definitely are. And we celebrate all the achievements that you've had. It's not easy to say things like we are not scared of the traditional banks, which at least in Latin America, it seems like an oligopoly, which is like just very few banks running the show. It's almost like David and Goliath. But let's go back and please tell us, educate us. What is fintech? From the very basic, because we are hearing a lot about that word, but what is fintech and what does Sempli do?
Okay, this is a very interesting question, and I will say from what you read out there, perhaps fintech is about offering financial products through technology. So then you have the fin and the tech. And that's from a summary from what you read. But at the end, we have understood that fintech is 2 things. First is giving access. So having the opportunity from the market to get a financial product. So access is very relevant. And access is not necessarily having the first financial product, but also enhancing the financial suits. Because for instance, in Latin America, almost 100% of small businesses have access to a deposit accounts, but only 9% have access to credit. So it's not about having one product, but a different suits of products. So access is very important. And perhaps fintech is even more relevant for emerging economies or countries than for more developed countries or economies. So when you think about access. And the second thing is about experience. So giving the opportunity to be more rapid or more agile, or having a simpler experience, or having the opportunity to disrupt or create more products through experience. So by doing and that's perhaps the brand or the naming or the tag of Sempli, which is simple is a game of wording here, but being simpler is very, very relevant in terms of fintech.
Amazing. And when you mention initiatives, inclusion, I know Sempli also has different initiatives for increasing financial inclusion for women or women entrepreneurs. Tell us about those initiatives that you don't necessarily see in other places, but that you are doing.
Sure. We have different initiatives. We see ourselves as a responsible debt. So being responsible is not creating over-indebtedness, and also having the opportunity to give access to different segments. And we work along with 3 different segments. The first one is the one that you mentioned, is empowering women that have not have the opportunity to get a financial product. And even if they do have a financial product, but they don't have the tools or to be in a market where is perhaps dominated by men. When you talk about business creation, normally in Latin American countries, that is the nature, that is the index that we see. Normally, only 1/3 of the companies that are in the missing middle, not in the base of the pyramid, because in the base of the pyramid, yes, women are very well empowered by, not necessarily by opportunity, but because they had to. But when you talk about the missing middle, normally, or different startups, so men are the ones that have more opportunities rather than women. So that's one part that we work. The other is dedicated to young entrepreneurs. For us, young is people who are under 35 years old. So normally when you get a financial product, it's because you have gray hair or because you have experience, but not necessarily because of that you're going to be more successful. So we are empowering also young entrepreneurs through our products. And the third one is dedicated to sustainable businesses. So how we support part of the businesses that are working along with different projects of waste management or sustainable energy, etc.
That rules me out. So Esteban, well, I've got a few gray hairs in my beard here, so I won't be getting any investment. But thanks a million for that. That's a great answer. And something actually that I wanted to move on from fintech was edtech, and we've been speaking about it a little bit on the podcast. What is your opinion on edtech, and is it something you yourself and your company have been involved in?
Yeah, when you talk about edtech, it's about the education, right?
Yes.
Okay, so when you talk about education, I mean, in general, for me, education is perhaps one of the most relevant investment opportunities that we see out there in general as a venture capital, with a venture capital mindset. When you talk about education, it's about giving also opportunities and wellness to a particular community. And working in Latin America, perhaps education is one of the things that is more needed first. And I see the market also wants to be educated. I mean, if you compare perhaps to more developed countries, and not necessarily being or having a judgment, but I see that Latin Americans want to be more educated, but not necessarily get the education that they need. So first, the market wants to be educated, and that's definitely very, very important. In terms of the industry that I'm in, so fintech has worked very, very, very hard in terms of getting different educational projects. For us, it's important that entrepreneurs understand very well corporate finance, that they understand the different marketing strategies that they can execute, or even if they have a more complex structure, corporate governance also. If they're a family business, how do you manage that corporate governance or conflict of interest from the family? So we have created several online courses and ebooks to our clients, and also it is open to the market, where we want them to be educated in terms of management a startup or a small business. So that's what we do. But other fintechs are consumer oriented, so perhaps personal finance is more relevant. And if we don't talk about fintech, but we talk about other markets, I think there's a lot of opportunities in terms, for instance, in language. Having a second language or a third language opens up not necessarily the opportunity to communicate, but to learn about culture, and that brings a lot of spicy to the career development of a person.
That's amazing. Yes. And it's also one of the things we are trying to do with this podcast, by me not being a native and having guests that are not necessarily native English speakers, for example, is that, well, we are in a global world and we want to do business, educate ourselves. It doesn't really matter. My very strong accent will be there for it.
Me too. Accent and mistakes. English mistakes.
Esteban, what are some of the success stories you have seen?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of successful stories. I mean, I like to think about. I'm very close to the guys of Merkeo in Colombia. Merkeo is a grocery online e-commerce. They created, before they created Merkeo, they launched Domicilios, which is perhaps the first and before Rappi, the most successful delivery startup in Latin America. And those guys, I mean, they created like a Domicilios mafia, because now they created Merkeo, the one that I mentioned, and the former CEO of Merkeo created Avi, which is a prop tech also, and I'm sure they will be creating a different startup. So that's one success story that I like to comment. But there are hundreds of entrepreneurs in Latin America that are doing a great job. Nubank is one case, and also a Colombian guy that went to Brazil. Actually, he was doing venture capital, and afterwards he was aware that there was a huge opportunity in terms of creating a neobank, or what today we know as Nubank. The guys from Confio, which is a benchmark for ourselves there in Mexico. I don't know. I mean, the list is very large, and I think there's a common thing with everybody that is creating or launching different startups in the region, is that they are passionate about what they do, and that's one thing that I like to highlight.
Yes, and we can also almost feel and hear your passion as well. Esteban, what gets you out of bed every morning?
I don't sleep, so it's very easy. No. No, so I think, I mean, I think that I'm going to answer in a different way, but the day has 24 hours. So, that's a limit, and very well-known limit. But normally people works 8 hours. People normally sleeps 8 hours, and they entertain the other 8 hours. So one thing is that you can be passionate and really enjoy so much what you're doing as a job or as an entrepreneur, that part of the entertainment, the 8 hours of entertainment, you put in the slot of your job. So at the end, you work 16 hours, and it's okay with you because you are enjoying what you're doing, and you are entertaining yourself and the other ones that are around you. So that's the way that I see my night, because I also keep some hours of some sleep hours, and at the end, when in my daytime, I also take my son to soccer games and to everything that he's doing. So I try to maintain a more balanced life, but it's not easy. It's not easy at all. And of course, having all the products that we're launching at Sempli, so that's everything that comes to my mind, and so it's not easy.
That's lovely. And Esteban, you've been amazing with your time today. And I suppose what is next for you? What are you really excited about? You've got a lot of spinning plates at the moment. It seems like there's a lot going on.
Yeah. So the next thing is, I mean, we are creating a company that has a purpose. So perhaps we haven't finished, and I don't think there's an ending point. So I still believe that there's a lot of things to create still in terms of payments, in terms of savings, in terms of delivering more feasible financial experience to our customers and potential customers that we don't currently have. So for me, creating a more suitable company to our customers, that's one thing that I want to continue doing, perhaps in the coming 5, 7, 10 years. I don't know yet. But I think that by having that purpose, I have had the opportunity also to work with different universities, with different think tanks in the region and in Colombia, and that's something that I like to continue doing. And of course, to be able to deliver my experience through different board of directors that I currently participate, but some invitations that I have. Normally, I keep saying to everyone that comes to me that I don't have time. I'm ashamed of that. So I would love to have more time to be able to provide my experience to other entrepreneurs. So that's something that I'm willing to do in the coming years.
And I know we were just about to say goodbye, but remind me, what is the purpose of Sempli? Do you have a purpose statement?
Yes, absolutely. Very simple. It's to generate wellness and health and financial health to all small businesses in Colombia.
Wow. And that is a very big purpose. We are cheering for you here. We are looking forward to seeing you grow and increase that financial inclusion in Colombia and who knows, across Latin America as well. Thank you so much for your time, Esteban. We learned a lot today.
Thank you, Johanna. Thank you, Paul, very much for the invitation.
And that was Esteban Velasco. I love the way that you pronounce his name, by the way, Paul.
Oh, really? Is that wrong? You should hear me reading through like South American football players. It's pretty much the same.
Yes. What a nice man. Very humble, very intelligent, very, down to earth. I really love this chat.
Yeah, he was a super nice guy. And then before we even started the interview, he was just really accommodating with his time. And we had a great laugh as well on the call, but just a really nice guy and really on the ball as well. And as we said during the talk, he's got a lot of plates spinning, Johanna, a lot of things going on.
Yes, a lot of things. And so, we hope that you enjoyed as much as we did. And you can reach us at howtobeadifference@theintergroup.com or on social media @theintergroup.
Yes, you got it all. Brilliant. I'm so delighted that you got that. Yeah, and also, if you could, please rate and subscribe wherever you get podcasts. That would help us out tremendously as well. And until next time, thanks so much for listening. And thank you to Johanna.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Steph. Bye.
Bye. Good luck.